honor and privilege to be at this distinguished place with this distinguished audience. As we already noted during the introduction, we are here in a very complicated time, for Georgia, for the region, in a complicated time which requires crafting of some new responses, crafting of some new approaches to complicated issues about our region, about Georgia, about Ukraine, about globally security in Europe. Of course, we would start talking about Georgia, but the situation forces us to start talking from Ukraine. Ukraine, a nation that we enjoy long and personal communications with. This is a nation that we had especially friendly feelings, not only during these last events, but long before in Soviet Union, and starting from that times, we were closely allied, and we were feeling that some of the main sentiments for independence, for individuality of our development were the same in Georgia and in Ukraine. But this friendship and alliances have gotten even more stronger, starting from the independence days of Georgia and Ukraine. And we were supporting each other, trying to push each other's agenda most actively during these 2 decades of independence. Now, with an unfortunate development in the last events, we have become even more stronger allied with our unfortunate problems that we have. What is happening now in Ukraine, we see as a continuation of a policy that has been developing in Georgia in 2008. Now we are sharing the same problem because Ukraine's territory, as well as Georgia's territory, is occupied. And this is not only an occupation, but this is a response and punishment to the free choice that both of our nations have made, and made not only declared, but made it realistic, and made our aspirations realistic into the new area, new environment of Europe. We all know that the Ukrainian case was linked with aspirations of the association agreement, and the same was done by Georgia, and now we are associate members of European Union. But globally, our independent choice has been responded so harshly by our neighbor, Russian Federation. And this is something that even more unites us today, and that we are developing a common approach, us and Ukraine together. What happened in 2008 in Georgia was a punishment for independent choice. What happened in 2014 in Ukraine is a punishment for independent choice. Both of those cases are concrete cases of a global theory, of a global approach to newly created independent and democratic states. We were discussing during the interview that the politicians from the Russian Federation have very explicitly defined what they want and how they view future of what they call areas of special interest. They are very explicit about talking about on these issues. They say that Russian Federation has the right and has the has capacities and capabilities to be a decisive player on those independent territories, on those independent nations. And what we are facing right now is not a concrete case in Crimea, is not a concrete case in Lugansk, but is a development of a geopolitical theory and complete explications of a geopolitical theory that has been very clearly worded out. So what we are looking at right now on Georgia's side, and it's a coordinated effort with our Ukrainian partners, is to show that there should be a concrete and an effective response, not to separate cases from time to time, but to overall approach to nations like Georgia, to nations like Ukraine. It should be an overall approach to this attitude that those countries cannot decide on their own, but have to be under a term of being Russia's backyard. And this approach should be shared by our allies. That is the message that we are trying to give to our allies, that the attitude when this attitude of privileged interest areas, if this is pardoned, if this is accepted, if Russia's aspirations are accepted and shared, then we will have a much more complicated future, not only with these countries, but with the overall security environment in Europe. We are talking about further engagement of our countries in European structures. We are talking about further engagement of our countries in NATO structures, and we are talking about those actions as bringing positive environment for our countries, for Europe, but even furthermore, for Russia. Because I think that this is not a rocket science to understand that stable Ukraine, stable Georgia, with stable economy, with stable security environment is an opportunity for Russia rather than a threat. It's an opportunity that is giving chances to Russian businesses, to Russian population to enjoy better neighborhood. That all of those nations that are around Russia are friendly and have no militant aspirations against Russian Federation, and they are not dangerous to Russian Federation. That neither of the problems in Russia are solved with aggressive activities to Ukraine, to Georgia, or to other of their neighbors. That those independent choices that those nations take are bringing better security, stability, and that expansion of Europe and expansion of NATO has not brought any complications for Russian Federation. Maybe on the contrary. The Baltics are a great case in this respect. Those are one of the most safe borders that Russia has. Those are countries with whom Russia trades. And trades not only on the business level, but enjoys partnership with NATO on some of the most complicated, let's say, military issues, because those projects are developed by Russia and by NATO. So we try to prove to our partners, we try to prove the same to our to the politicians in Russian Federation, though we don't have diplomatic relations with them, that we are not a threat, but rather an opportunity. That if we talk concretely about Georgia, if we develop peaceful, calm, stable, economically viable Georgia, that is development of peaceful, calm, and stable and prosperous Caucasus, which is a great opportunity for Russian business, for stabilizing and solving issues that are in Russian Federation. That this communication hub of Georgia, which is a potential of uniting Asia and Europe through energy transportation corridors, through communication corridors, that is capable of bringing Asian resources to Europe, is not a threat, but an opportunity for peoples and nations living in the region. We, as a country, have done a lot to show this positive development and this positive paradigm as possible to our allies and to decision makers in Europe, in West, as well as all around the world. We have been a very principled and responsible player in international security issues. I should just remind you that Georgia is the biggest non-member contributor to security, to the international security, whether it's NATO-sponsored project in Afghanistan or whether it's EU, the ISAF mission, or whether it's EU operation in Central Africa. We have tried, we have declared, and here our government, same as the old government, are unanimous that we are never going to solve our territorial problems through any kind of militant activities, whether it's to the, in relations to the Somali region or whether it's in relations with Abkhazia. We try to bring and push this positive and constructive message. Of course, we are a country that is developing its, still is developing and is in a form of transition. We are a nation that had peaceful transfer of power, that is strengthening and deepening its democratic institutions. And of course, on this path, there are issues still to be developed, there are issues still to be deepened and stabilized. But here as well we feel that more engagement of Georgia into Europe, more engagement of Georgia into NATO, and actually the slogan that we are trying to develop right now together with our allies is more Georgia in NATO and more NATO in Georgia is the right way to go. Engagement of our foreign partners, engagement of our Western allies is going to create a more stable country, more stable region, and more secure region in the world at the end. So with this message we are going to the NATO summit. We hope that the question marks about firm and stable Georgia support will turn into a very concrete and well-spoken and well-formulated policy on behalf of NATO, which will make Georgia more stable after the Wells Summit, which will make the region more secure after the Wells Summit. This is our message. We are in coordination and alliance in this respect with our Ukrainian partners. We believe that we have a very clear truth to share with our allies, and we hope that tomorrow and the day after tomorrow will bring positive to Georgia, to Caucasus, and eventually to Europe as well. Thank you, and I decided to make it a little bit shorter to have more time for interaction and communication. Thank you. Thank you.